Uda is a jobless clown who likes expressing all of his emotions until he meets a cold-hearted girl, and he makes it his life mission to make the girl feel warm emotions. It all begins with Kashiwata and Uda playing a card game called Old Maid, which revolves around the display of emotions. Just like all card games, Kashiwata remains cold while staring at her cards, while Uda is busy tweaking like a damaged umbrella. Uda turns out to be a loudmouthed chicken who boasts to Kashiwata, telling her that he will ultimately defeat her in the card game, just to prove that he is a chill dude. He picks his card and waits for Kashiwata to point to the right card, while trying his best not to show emotions. However, Kashiwata ultimately crushes his baby ego by picking the right card and winning the game. Uda smashes his head into the table in frustration, but because he is a stubborn goat, he demands that they play one more round. Uda is prepared to show who is the boss in the new round, but just like before, the game ends in his defeat. Uda takes a minute to think about his defeat before demanding another round of the game. His classmate, Sada, tries telling him to put the fries in the bag, but he is too stubborn to listen. Uda is confident that he finally knows how he is going to defeat Kashiwata in the card game. Kashiwata shuffles the cards and distributes them, while Uda is busy watching all of her body movements. When it is time for Uda to pull a card, he pulls the Joker card, expecting her to at least twitch, but Kashiwata remains expressionless as ever. Deep down, she is actually relieved that Uda didn't pull the winning card. At this point, Uda is convinced that Kashiwata is using some sort of mystical powers. He tries getting her to show emotions, but he fails, and in the end, Kashiwata wins again, ultimately defeating the baboon head 3 times in a row. Later on, Kashiwata is walking through the school lobby when a spider suddenly falls on her face. Kashiwata comes to a stop and simply reveals that the spider startled her, but her facial expression doesn't say anything. It turns out that the spider was Uda's handiwork, just to get an expression from Kashiwata, but his plan fails. Uda, contesting for the most persistent man on the planet, tells Kashiwata that he will definitely try again another time. Not long after this, Kashiwata is minding her business, strolling through the school, when Uda appears like a failed Halloween project, trying to startle Kashiwata. Deep down, Kashiwata is surprised, but there is no expression of this on her face, which makes Uda's struggle yet another failure. Uda tries again in class by blowing a loud whistle behind Kashiwata's ear, but she remains motionless and expressionless like a statue. Uda cannot believe his eyes when he sees this, but he continues with his make Kashiwata show expression plan. Kashiwata is about to enter the classroom when she is hit with stickers, telling her to be more expressive. Even though the stickers almost flew into her eyes to blind her, she didn't even blink.
Come on, man!
Uda, at this point, believes that he graduated from the school of failure with honors. Frustrated about failing over and over again, he asks his friend, Sada, what he can do to make Kashiwata have expressions. Sada advises him to let it go because no matter what he does, there is no indication that Kashiwata will ever be expressive. Sada then asks him why he is particular about getting Kashiwata to express himself, and the moment Uda hears this, he figures out that it is story time. He narrates that it all started back at the school opening ceremony. Before he continues his dumb and boring story, Sada asks if he can go to the bathroom, but Uda screams at him to stay back and hear him. Uda reveals that the first time he met Kashiwata was on the day of the opening ceremony, when the cherry blossoms were in their prime. As the dumb and pushover dude that he is, he got attacked by a crow without any pre-existing provocation. While struggling with the crow, the bird lets its droppings on his well-ironed and neat uniform, causing him to scream at the crow. The crow enjoyed his pain and tried to get more by letting off more droppings on him, but he managed to dodge it the second time. Uda was busy cursing out the annoying discount eagle when he noticed that it actually let off its corroded intestine droppings on Kashiwata's head. Uda cannot believe that someone who got hit worse than him isn't moving or showing any emotions to it. Instead of saying anything or starting to whine about the trash on her head, Kashiwata just ignores it and continues on her way to school. This piques Uda's interest in her, and he decides to follow her like a baby stalker. In the course of following her was when he found out that they were in the same class, too. This only made things easier for him because ever since, he has been looking for a way to make her show expressions, but he hasn't succeeded even once. After Sada and his other friend are done hearing his dumbass story, they call Uta the biggest airhead for trying to chase after a crow. Uta screams at the two, telling them that the biggest takeaway in his story that the two uninterested chickens obviously miss is that Kashiwada annoys him. Later on, Kashiwada brings out her lunch in class to eat, but Uta is solely focused on everything that she is doing. Kashiwada grabs her bottle and starts to gulp the contents, but Uta immediately starts laughing at Kashiwada for falling into his trap. Uta reveals that he swapped the tea in the bottle with vinegar, and with this, he expects Kashiwada to show a bit of emotion as she drinks the sour vinegar. However, Uta is in for a big surprise because Kashiwada maintains her normal expression when she is supposed to be screaming her lungs out. This leaves Uta confused, and he walks to his table to drink from his own bottle. The moment he does this, he ends up spilling everything that he drank because it is vinegar. While coughing like an infected pig, he turns around to see if Kashiwada is laughing, but she is just her normal self. Kashiwada then reveals that Uta smirked a little when he was staring at her bottle, and this is when she figured out that Uta is up to something. This is what gave him up, and she wasted no time swapping the bottles back. Uta almost loses his mind because Kashiwada is basically telling him that he is the most obvious and expressive person she has met. Uta's friends can clearly see that Uta has become the victim when he is supposed to be the predator. Uta is about to walk away in anger when Kashiwada slightly drags him back to tell him that she actually likes him for being expressive. Uta thinks this is pure sarcasm coming from Kashiwada, but she reveals that she is being serious. It soon turns into an awkward couple moment between them, leaving the other students to start wondering what the two have going on. While Uta is busy screaming in frustration, Kashiwada returns to her seat, and she seems to have let off a little smile, but Uta is too busy to notice. Shortly afterward, Uta calls a strategic meeting with his friends, all in the name of getting Kashiwada to be expressive. Uta reveals that the first thing he is going to do is to monitor Kashiwada all day because there is definitely going to be a moment when she changes expression. Because of how mysterious Kashiwada is, Sada and the third dude also say they are going to help Uta watch Kashiwada. The following day, Uta and his friends kick their plan into motion. They resume to class very early, but to their surprise, Kashiwada is already there. They stay by the door to keep themselves hidden from the mysterious girl. During the first period, Uta whips out binoculars just to monitor everything that Kashiwada is doing in class. In the second period, which is the physical exercise period, Uta remains hot on her tail. Uta almost nukes himself during the third period, which is a chemistry practical in the process of monitoring Kashiwada. Even in the fourth period, Uta makes sure that he doesn't give Kashiwada any breathing space while she is busy solving mathematics on the board. At the end of the day, Uta holds a meeting with his friends, and he reveals his frustration that Kashiwada's expression didn't change even once during the entire day. Sada, on the other hand, is able to gather useless statistics about how Kashiwada blinked 15 times in 1 minute. Uta thinks their entire plan is ruined until he learns that there is still a cleaning duty after school. He asks his friends where Kashiwada will be cleaning, and they tell him that she is in charge of the pool. Just as expected, the trio hides behind cover to watch Kashiwada carry out her cleaning duties, while hoping that she lets off any form of emotion. Momentarily, news reaches Kashiwada's cleaning mates that there is a raccoon in the area, and this causes them to all abandon their duties just so that they can see the raccoon. Even though Kashiwada is interested in seeing the raccoon, she has to maintain her cold personality. Kashiwada continues cleaning, and when Uta realizes that her cleaning mates are not coming back, he decides to enter the pool. He walks up to Kashiwada, looking like the least suspicious person. He tells Kashiwada that he has a treat for her, and he suddenly whips out the water hose he is hiding behind him. Uta is confident that he has Kashiwada in his grasp, but to his surprise, Kashiwada pulls an acrobatic move to dodge the water. He ends up spilling the water on himself, and as if this is not enough, his friends hit him with water guns. They even betray him by bringing a spare for his ops. Uta finds himself engaging in a water fight against 3 dudes. The 4 enjoy the moment of splashing themselves with water without even realizing it. One of their teachers soon shows up to ruin the moment, and he scolds them for running on a concrete surface, which is risky. After the boys are done getting scolded, they have no choice but to join Kashiwada in cleaning the pool. Kashiwada appreciates Uta's help, and she thanks him, but Uda tries to maintain his ego by telling Kashiwata not to thank him. Uda then stays on his tail throughout the entire cleaning service, forcing out a new level of frustration in him with every minute that goes by. Up next is the class physical session, and they engage in some swimming activities. During the boys' period, Uda dives into the water like a fish, and he comes out first, leaving the other students to watch his trail. Since he is done with his own session, Uda waits for Kashiwata's turn so he can see her expression. Momentarily, Kashiwata jumps into the water, and everyone expects a classic performance from her. But suddenly, they realize that she is motionless. They rush into the water to grab her, believing that she is drowning. However, she maintains her emotionless face while casually revealing that she was actually trying to swim like a bug. After the swimming session is over, the teacher tells Uda that he is putting him in charge of teaching Kashiwata how to swim for the girls' relay. Uda argues against this, asking why he should be the one teaching Kashiwata. The teacher then reveals that he is busy because he has to supervise the entire class. Before Uda can argue his case any further, the teacher leaves. Uda finds himself stuck with Kashiwata, but he refuses to teach her anything. Just then, Sada jumps into the water, assuring Kashiwata that he will teach her how to become a proper mermaid. Realizing that his friend is about to take Kashiwata from him, Uda immediately returns, telling Kashiwata that he is going to teach her. However, he deludes himself with the idea that he is going to hassle her during the training session. He holds her hands in the water while teaching her the stroking techniques to use. Uda's friends laugh at him because even with all of his complaints, he doesn't realize that he is already teaching her how to swim. Just then, Uda decides to mess with Kashiwata by letting her hand go, so he can see her panic while drowning. His intrusive thoughts take over, and he does just as he wanted. To his surprise, Kashiwata remains in the swimming position without any change in her expression. This leaves Uda utterly disappointed, and just when he thinks he can't have it worse, Kashiwata suddenly grabs his lower body because she is already drowning. He tries to get her off, but she holds on to his trunk while being dragged in the water. Uda barely manages to come out of the water without the entirety of his trunk coming off his body. However, the elastic has greatly loosened, and while he is complaining about this, Sada tells him that Kashiwata and the girls are about to engage in the girls' relay. Uda decides to watch her, and the moment the whistle goes off, Kashiwata joins the girls to jump into the water. Surprisingly, Kashiwata is able to swim better than before, even though it is still not fast enough. Uda stood like a proud mother bird as he watched Kashiwata display the skills that he had taught her. When his friends call his attention to how obvious it looks, he denies it and tries to leave so he can fix his trunks. Suddenly, he hears the scream for help, and when he turns around, it seems Kashiwata is already drowning. Uda doesn't hesitate before jumping into the water to save Kashiwata. He screams out frantically until Kashiwata replies that she is fine. However, he soon realizes that he is in trouble when his friends call his attention to his trunk that is floating behind him. Soon afterward, Uda resumes with his mission to try to scare Kashiwata and get her to react. He starts engaging in several scary acts, but Kashiwata remains strong. This continues until Uda is suddenly approached by another classmate, Tabuchi, who claims that Uda is bullying Kashiwata. It turns into a full-blown argument between the two, and Tabuchi angrily tells Uda that he will be at fault if Kashiwata decides not to come to school again. Uda has never dealt with Tabuchi before, but his friends let him know that Tabuchi is one of the worst because she doesn't joke with competition. Uda finally realizes that he has trouble following him around. Moments later, Uda finds Kashiwata walking out of the classroom, and he decides to scare her like a fake masquerade. But the moment he makes his move, Tabuchi appears behind him like a persistent ghost. Tabuchi assures Uda that she is always watching, even when he thinks she is not. Uda screams at her because he finally has a stalker on his hands. It turns out that Tabuchi is monitoring Uda more than she is actually monitoring Kashiwata. Tired of getting stalked, Uda decides to finally approach her, and he lets her know that he is aware of the fact that she is curious about Kashiwata. Tabuchi tries to deny this fact, saying she is just trying to make sure that Uda doesn't disturb Kashiwata. Uda doesn't believe this one bit, and he lets Tabuchi know that she is the most obvious person, but this leads to an argument between the two. Sada finally jumps in, asking Tabuchi why she is actually watching Kashiwata, because it is quite obvious. Tabuchi is taken by surprise by the question, and after a minute of trying to pull herself together, she reveals that she is watching her because she is a fan. The boys are shocked when she says this, and Tabuchi explains that she is always filled with joy whenever she watches Kashiwata do her thing. Tabuchi claims that she likes the way Kashiwata's expression changes every minute, but screams at Uda for being an insect who is always around Kashiwata, ultimately ruining her plans to get a good look at her. Tabuchi goes into total psycho mode, saying Uda needs permission from her if he wants to interact with Kashiwata, since she is the president of her fan club. The boys believe that she is saying trash, but she argues that she can read Kashiwata's expressions. She mentions that she is able to do this because of her daily observations on Kashiwata, and surprisingly, Tabuchi tells Uda that he lost the competition, when the dude doesn't even know that they are competing in the first place. Later on, Uda enters the classroom to find Kashiwata sitting in a corner, and while he is still trying to figure out what is going on, her supposed fan shows up to lend Kashiwata a hand from the corner where she is sitting. Kashiwata then tells Tabuchi that she heard everything about being her fan. Tabuchi almost bursts out in happiness, but she can't contain it, and she starts to freak out. This serves as the best spectacle for Uda as he starts making fun of Tabuchi. Tabuchi can no longer take the embarrassment, and she crashes to her knees in shame. And while Uda is still making fun of her, Kashiwata walks up to her, telling her that she doesn't need a fan but a friend. Tabuchi's dashed hope immediately comes back to life with this single statement. Tabuchi gets on her feet and rushes to hug Kashiwata from behind while making fun of Uda that he doesn't have a defined relationship with Kashiwata. Suddenly, Kashiwata ruins the mood again by saying she is not really interested in being friends with Uda, but saying what she wants actually becomes a problem for her. Her face turns red while trying to look for the right words, but this only puts so much pressure on Uda and Tabuchi. Later on, they are having a discussion during lunch when Kashiwata hears Uda talking to his friends about how he never brings lunch to school and only relies on the snacks provided. The next day, Uda rushes out of class as usual, aiming to be the first person to reach the canteen so he can get his snacks. However, he runs into Kashiwata, who blocks his path as if she wants to tell him something. The two remain in this position until the rest of the class runs out of the classroom, and they beat Uda to the snacks vendor, leaving him snackless for the day. Because he missed his lunch, he remained on edge for the rest of the day. Not ready to let things go, he plans his revenge for the next day. The following day, Uda is about to run off to the canteen again when Kashiwata does the same thing as yesterday. Uda is planning his evasive measures when Kashiwata finally conquers her fear and whips out a lunch for him. She reveals that she made one yesterday, but was too nervous to give him. Uda doesn't take it too seriously until Sada shows up to take the lunch. He protects the lunch with his life, but when he returns to class, he is utterly disappointed that the lunch is nothing but 2 slices of apple. Uda cannot believe that Kashiwata has just made him lose lunch 2 days in a row. He decides to punish her by throwing a paper plane at her, but this fails. He starts walking around to see what he can use, and suddenly, he finds Kashiwata's hair tie lying around. Uda picks it up, and he stands by the window, threatening to let it go. However, the strong wind from the brewing rain takes the hair tie away from him. Uda falls into distraught when he sees Kashiwata crying. Uda immediately regrets his decision, and Tabuchi makes it hurtful by saying it was her grandmother who gave her the hair tie, which is probably an heirloom. Feeling the intense guilt, Uda runs out of the classroom, and he runs into the rain to try and find the hair tie. His friends later found him in the rain, and, pitying his status, they joined him in searching for the hair tie. After so much effort in the rain, they finally found the hair tie, but it was already dirty. Before taking it to Kashiwata, he buys another one to try and appease her. He heads to her house in the rain to give her the hair tie, and after giving it to her, he is shocked to see that she still has a grandmother. He asks why she was crying earlier, and she reveals that something flew into her eyes. Uda almost loses his head in embarrassment, and Kashiwata finishes him off when she assures him that she is going to treasure the hair tie he bought for her. Uda runs out of the house with a red face, trying to subdue his clear feelings for the girl. Meanwhile, Tabuchi is still in the rain, trying to find the hair tie. Up next, Uda walks up to Kashiwata to request for her Lime username, which is a social media app. Uda claims it is part of his efforts to get a reaction out of her. Uda mentions that they are going to be spamming each other with random messages on the app, and whoever gets noticed by the teacher loses the competition. While Uta is screaming like a rundown car, Kashiwata is actually glad that she managed to get his Lime username. Once the class starts, Uta swings into action, and the first text he sends to Kashiwata is to misinform her of what is written on the blackboard. He expects this to get a reaction out of her, but when she raises her head to check the board, she maintains her usual expression, ultimately sending Uta's first attempt directly into the trash. Uta prepares to strike again, but he murmurs out too loudly, and this catches the teacher's attention, who screams at him for not paying attention in class. After this, Uta starts sending Kashiwata funny stickers like the head-shaped potato, but all of these don't get a reaction out of her. Uta is venting his frustration when the teacher catches him again. This time around, the teacher smacks him on the head with a textbook, just to try and get him to concentrate. Uta, being the persistent fool, continues with his useless stickers and images, and even though Kashiwata is laughing out her lungs, there is no expression of it on her face. Uta is completely frustrated because all of his prep time is starting to amount to nothing. Uta is thinking of his next move when he is suddenly hit with a note. He opens it to see that it is from Tabuchi. Tabuchi lets him know that she is watching him, but Uta writes back in the note and sends it back to her. She opens the note and almost passes out in shock when she realizes that Uta is texting Kashiwata on Slime. 1,000 things start running through her head, like what type of messages he is sending to her, and how he was even able to get her Slime username before her. Unable to take the shock anymore, she passes out right on her table. Just then, Kashiwata starts replying to Uta, but instead of funny videos, she asks him for an answer to what she had asked him. She states that she likes him and, unable to contain the sudden rush of emotions that he is seeing, his face turns bright red. This catches the teacher's attention, and he walks over to scold him, but Uta tries to defend himself, saying it was Kashiwata who set him up. The teacher doesn't believe any of this, since Kashiwata appears to have been concentrating the entire time. Some minutes earlier, Oniwarata had entered the class with the same worry that he had had over the months, which is his inability to get the students to develop some sort of interest in his class. Oniwarata assumes that they are all acting this way because of his scary face, but he notices that there is one person who is always attentive, and this is Kashiwata. Kashiwata is unlike the biggest troublemaker in the class, Uta. Just minutes into the class, Oniwarata can already see Uta engaging in activities that will not allow him to concentrate. However, while he was scolding Uta for not concentrating in class, he noticed something strange. He senses that Kashiwata is laughing, even though it is not written on her face. Oniwarata immediately assumes that he has hit the jackpot and has finally figured out what makes the class tick. To him, he thinks that cracking jokes during class will reduce the tension in the class and turn him into their favorite teacher. He decides to test out his new idea by writing amazed instead of amazed, expecting everyone to laugh, but to his utmost surprise, the students look dead and uninterested than they were before he came up with the stupid idea. Oniwarata looks to Kashiwata for help, but she appears to be the worst of them all. This was the moment Tabuchi passed out and Oniwarata passed out, making him believe that his jokes are so horrible that they almost sent a student to the afterlife. Oniwarata spots Uta on his phone with his face totally red, and this was when he rushed over to challenge him. His hot exchange with Uta ends up relieving the tension in the room, and Oniwarata thanks his unexpected savior, Uta. Later on, Uta is busy minding his business when Tabuchi shows up with a weird request. She tells Uta that she is challenging him to a duel, leaving the dude totally confused. Tabuchi claims that Uta has been a big troublemaker to Kashiwata's peace, thanks to the several horrible things he has done to her. Kashiwata, on the other hand, is not in any way worried about everything that Tabuchi is saying. Tabuchi then adds that another purpose of the duel is to clear the idea that she has the same characteristics as Uta. Tabuchi's condition is that whoever makes a reaction first loses, and the loser will have to stay away from Kashiwata. Kashiwata is shocked when she hears this. Not one to shy away from a challenge, Uta excitedly accepts Tabuchi's terms. In class, the two sit like zombies, making sure that they maintain their straight faces. Oniwarata then informs them that he is going to distribute their test results to them. Tabuchi hears this and immediately assumes that she has found a way to win, since Uta always goes crazy when he receives his test results to see his trash score waiting for him. Tabuchi walks up and gets her result, which turns out to be 95. She is relieved and happy, but she maintains her expressionless face. When Uda gets his result, he maintains his expressionless face too. This shocks Tabuchi, who assumes that Uda managed to get something good out of the test. She sneaks close to him to check his scores, but to her surprise, Uda scored 0. Unknown to her, Uda is used to being so much trash that he is not even moved by getting a 0 again. The fight between the two continues when Uda provides them with hot food and suggests that they eat it without showing emotions. The two get down to eating, and even though they are turning into artificial dragons, the two refuse to give a reaction. Just then, Kashiwata ruins everything by telling Tabuchi that she is cute. She turns bright red since she can't contain her feelings, leaving Uda to celebrate as the winner of the challenge. Tabuchi runs off to avoid further embarrassment, and after she is gone, Kashiwata turns to Uda, telling him that she actually likes him for being too expressive. Before he can get a further explanation for this, she runs off, but not without leaving Uda's face totally red. Later that day, Uda learns that Kashiwata is in the storage room, and he decides to enter so he can scare her. He soon finds Kashiwata crawling around, and when he asks her what the problem is, she says she saw something crawling around. Uda then decides to join in crawling around to search for what she saw. Moments later, the physical education teacher shows up to lock the storage room, believing that no one is there. The moment Uda finds out that they are locked in, he loses his mind and starts banging on the door. But when he turns around, Kashiwata is still her usual self. Uda notices that she is shaking, and he assumes that she is only trying to contain her laughter. He is screaming at the girl when his tummy makes a loud noise like a dead generator, showing that he is starving. Kashiwata then offers him candy, but he initially refuses. He has no choice but to later take the candy and eat to avoid seeing his ancestors, since they have no idea if they are going to remain locked up till the next day. Moments later, Kashiwata grabs his arm and mentions that she saw something moving in the distance. Uda calms down to observe, and he notices that it is just a lizard. Kashiwata finally calms down, and she thanks Uda for being there with her because she would have been locked up all by herself. This is when it finally dawns on Uda that Kashiwata wasn't laughing before, but she was scared. Even though he enjoys being in there with her, he tries to act like he doesn't care. Since he has seen her get scared, Uda decides to take it a step further by actually scaring her by pretending to be a ghost. He grabs one of the sheets and jump scares Kashiwata, but as expected, she doesn't flinch. He ends up falling on top of her, and this is when Oniwarada and Uda's friends finally enter the room in an attempt to rescue them. Uda is left screaming and explaining that what they saw is not what it is, but the memory is already stuck in the trio's brains. Up next, Uda walks up to Kashiwata to invite her to see a movie with him. His friends waste no time assuming that he is trying to get Kashiwata on a date, but Uda debunks. He mentions that there is a new horror movie in town, and he wants Kashiwata to watch it in an attempt to scare her, just so he can get an expression. Surprisingly, Kashiwata accepts the deal, and before Uda and his friends get more time to stress Kashiwata, Tabuchi enters the room. That Saturday, they meet at the designated location, and Uda is blown away by Kashiwata's outfit. Realizing that he is about to let off emotions, he quickly covers it up by telling Kashiwata that they are not on a date. Kashiwata grabs his arm, and he almost loses all of his brain function while trying to hide his embarrassment. Moments later, they arrive at the cinema, and after getting their tickets, they take their seats. Uda is already imagining what Kashiwata's face is going to look like when fear grips her. He also has a piece of konnyaku that he plans to place on Kashiwata's hand to scare her. The movie starts with a scary figure emerging from the scenes, and Uda almost jumps out of his seat. While Kashiwata maintains her composure, Uda tries to manage his oral loss by coming up with daft excuses. He then urges Kashiwata to focus on the film instead of watching him like a hawk. The movie takes another turn when it transitions into a love scene, leaving Uda's face totally red. Just then, he notices that he has lost the konnyaku, and unknown to him, it is sitting beside Kashiwata. While he is looking for the konnyaku, the scene transitions back to horror, almost giving him a heart attack. Kashiwata then finishes the job by placing the konnyaku on his cheeks, and Uda screams his lungs out in fear. After the movie, Kashiwata thanks Uda for bringing her out, while admitting that it was a good movie. Uda, on the other hand, is finding it so difficult to contain his emotions, as tears run down his face. After leaving the cinema, they branch out to a gallery where Uda helps Kashiwata to win a teddy, and even though she is happy, she fails to express it. They move forward and find a cafe, where Uda buys her ice cream, hoping that she would smile while eating it, but Kashiwata maintains her expressionless face throughout. Later that day, they got on a bus to head back to their place. Exhausted from all the walking, Kashiwata rests her head on his shoulder to sleep. Uda is frustrated that everything didn't work out, and Kashiwata ends up controlling the game. The other passengers notice the two together and assume that they are a couple, leaving Uda with a red face again. On Monday, Uda's friends ask him about his supposed date, but he refuses to talk about it out of sheer embarrassment. Realizing that Uda failed on his mission, his friends tell him to hold Kashiwata's hands out of the blue, as this is supposed to spark a reaction from her. However, this goes horribly wrong for Uda, as he ends up revealing his emotions instead of Kashiwata. Deep down, Kashiwata is embarrassed, but her expressionless face doesn't do justice. Later on, Uda learns from his friends that Kashiwata is always running off after school, and he assumes that Kashiwata is onto something sinister. He decides to surprise her to try to get leverage over her. The trio follows Kashiwata until they find her crouching beside a wall. Uda calls out her name, hoping to catch her with something strange, but when she turns around, she is holding a cute kitten. Kashiwata mentions that she found the cat abandoned a while ago. Since then, she has been taking care of the cat in secret because her father hates cats. Kashiwata has even bought a cat formula for the little cat. After she is done feeding the cat, she tells Uda to try to hold it. However, the cat immediately shows that it hates Uda's gut by freaking out. Uda friends mock him as usual, calling him trash for appearing like a horror to cats. Since the cat will be in danger by nightfall, Uda suggests that they find an owner for it. Uda is controlling the situation until Tabuchi appears from where she is hiding, saying she heard everything. It immediately turns into a competition of who can help Kashiwata out of her situation. Uda grabs his phone and posts the ad on social media, but his friends remind him that he has just a couple of friends there. Since the situation is dire, Uda's two friends also agree to help find an owner for the kitten. The mission to find an owner for the cat then begins with each of them walking through the neighborhood in search of a potential cat owner. After a long search, the others return empty-handed, but suddenly, Uda's post on social media hits a jackpot, and he finds an owner for the cat. It turns out that the potential owner is from the next town, and they will be coming to the school the next day to pick up the cat. Tabuchi mocks him, saying his stupidity finally comes through for once. Even though Kashiwata has already grown attached to the kitten, she has no choice but to give the cat to its new owner. After the owner leaves, Kashiwata tries to hold in her emotions, but she ends up tearing up, and Uda comforts her by patting her on the head. Days later, Uda notices that Kashiwata is still sneaking around, and he decides to follow her. He thinks he is going to find her doing something bad, but it turns out that she was just visiting the kitten at its new owner's place. Sometime later, Tabuchi shows up in class with gifts for Kashiwata because it's her birthday. It comes as a shock to Uda, and he demands to know how Tabuchi knows this. Tabuchi proudly tells Uda that she is Kashiwata's friend, which is how she knows. Kashiwata appreciates the gifts, and she thanks Tabuchi for them. Uda's friends also wish her a prosperous birthday, but Uda stays mute, trying to act all cool. His friends tell him to wish Kashiwata a happy birthday, but he finds it hard to do so. On their way home, Uda's friends scold him for not wishing Kashiwata a happy birthday. When Uda arrives home, he wastes no time chatting with Kashiwata on the phone. The two get engrossed in the chat, but at some point, Kashiwata drops her phone to eat, and Uda freaks out, believing that Kashiwata is pissed at him. Meanwhile, Uda's sister teases him because she can see just how embarrassed he is over Kashiwata's texts. Thanks for watching until the end, and leave a comment if you think they ever saw the raccoon.